Among writers, Edgar Allan Poe stands alone by impacting generation after generation with his creepy quality of work and the tragic end of his short life. Edgar, a mesmeric passage into the life of Edgar Allan Poe. A multimedia presentation showcasing the life of Poe from his humble birth to his tragic death and bringing his stories to life on stage. Presented by filmmaker Wayne Justice, a performance theater veteran and lifelong Poe enthusiast.
As I was trying my hand more at directing than acting, looking for material that I wanted to produce for the stage, the only thing that I could find that I would even really want to do was Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar is portrayed by Shane Smith, also a veteran actor and close friends with Justice.
And so it began. I was going to do a one-man show, but the more I thought about it, I thought I don't look like him. People aren't going to believe it if I walk out there. I don't look anything like Edgar Allan Poe. So I thought about Shane.
Be that word! Our sign of party! Bird or fiend, I shrieked, I'm starting. Get thee back into the Tintus and the night's Plutonian shore.
Wayne and I have worked together in quite a few shows and had similar tastes in films and music and just quickly became friends.
And he's also been my acting partner for 20 years. And we're always looking for something to do on the stage. And his particular talents really lend themselves to what we would want for Edgar Allan Poe. And of course I talked to him and he said yes right away. And just initially he was able to find that character and bring some amazing stuff out.
I tried to focus on his doubts about faith and what kind of persistence it would take to not only survive hardship after hardship, but to also be as prolific as he was.
To round out the cast, Justice recruited Andrea Klinker, a talented actress with an impressive background in stage performance.
That Wayne was really interested in Poe and has always wanted to put together a show about Edgar Allan Poe, and I chimed in with, I love Poe too, I love reading it. I remember the very first story I read was Telltale Heart, and I was like in 4th grade, I think, 4th or 5th grade, and it's kind of stuck with me ever since. And it just kind of all fell into place from there.
With the cast now in place, Justice wanted to focus on setting the stage by educating his audience, dismissing the myths of Edgar Allan Poe, and bringing the real man to the surface.
We thought if we took about 15 minutes and made a quick documentary, cradle to grave, and that was how our audience member got to know, okay, this is who this guy is. Now let's see his work.
A few people have asked, is it a documentary or is it a play? And my answer is always yes. It starts off with this really cool 15-minute documentary about Poe's life and work from when he was a kid to when he died. Then it seamlessly transitions into another dimension.
In Edgar, it's a completely different experience. First of all, people are going to be blown away by the documentary. It's in a fast way for them to catch the entire lifespan of the author and hear some facts that they've never heard before. And then there's an emotional connection that happens when our Edgar, who they've just seen on the screen, steps out on stage and transports them to his world. It really is like entering the life of Edgar Allan Poe rather than sitting there and listening to someone read his work. They are engaged completely throughout the performance, and I think that's one of the things that sets Edgar apart from every other Poe work that's been done.
Being able to work with that and kind of time the fade-ins with the film fading out, and as Edgar first comes on stage, in which I think is just a really neat use of light as well as the projection from the film, the credits. Or actually the name of the film coming up at the end, and Edgar coming in. It's almost as though he's coming out of the film, if you will. And that was something which we really kind of try to convey.
So the transition from the film to the live performance happens sort of in the same way when Dorothy opens the doors and it goes from black and white to color when she lands in Oz.
After seeing the production and the history, the background of the man, it kind of painted a better picture for me to understand his work. So I really appreciated the film before the production play. Yeah.
To have that biographical film at the beginning with our Poe, not just like something that someone else made, but something we actually made with our own characters from the show. It let the audience know who Edgar Allan Poe was and why he wrote the way he did, and where pieces fell in his life, and how the death of so many important women, especially in his life, affected him.
But I noticed right away that Wayne had a knack for filmmaking, and was impressed with a lot of the shots and ideas for shots. And got to meet some new people who were very talented and nice to be around too.
While production of the film was underway, the stage show was simultaneously being created and rehearsed.
It was so much different than what we originally anticipated. Like it was a story, and then it was a set of stories, and there was a plot, but there wasn't, and nothing. It evolved so much from just like three people reciting Poe into a very passionate experience for the audience and for us, like telling a story, not just reading a story.
Yeah, it was fun it was a show where you could have an idea on Monday and actually see it being used later in the week or even later that day. It was just really free, and I think everyone felt free to bring ideas up.
Poe says that he wishes for his writings to only circulate the way they were written. So we really wanted to pay very close attention to keeping things word for word and to not really deviate at all from his written word.
The Raven is something which is just spectacular.
Every time it moves me because it is so sincere, and you really have a deep understanding of what the Raven probably meant to him when he wrote it. Once you see R. Shane Smith perform the Raven, you'll never think of that piece the same again.
The realization of the Raven gives me goosebumps every time. It's something to admire.
I've seen a lot of performances with Raven, through whether it be on stage or film or even readings. None come close to this. I think that Shane just does a spectacular job. I mean, he is just amazing on stage, and I think that in itself is just is great. The cast of Montiero, I think, is really a very weird but funny.
When Fortunato is coughing, then he's like, oh, it's nothing. Like, I laughed every time. The first time Wayne did that, I thought he was legitimately coughing because he had been sick. And so I like stepped out. I was like, oh no, he's just acting. It's fine.
Friend, come, we'll go back here.
You almost feel ashamed that you're laughing at it at the end. You're sort of saying, "Oh God, what am I?" You're kind of, I can't believe I just laughed at that. I mean, there's this guy buried in the wall. I'm laughing at this thing, but it's just the way it's done. I mean, and I think that I mean, of course, that's the story, and it's just really kind of a thing. But the way it is done on stage, I think Wayne did a great job in directing it, and certainly blocking it, and just the timing and the delivery of the lines, I think, are what make it pretty unique from other productions.
While The Raven is spectacular, Telltale Heart is unbelievable. Andrea is just extraordinary. Talk about reinventing a story.
She captured a sense about that piece that no one else had before. I think people are completely moved by Shane Smith, but they are caught completely unaware when Andrea comes out and performs.
By the end of the Telltale Heart, if if you look at the audience, and you'll see people that are just have all kinds of expressions on their faces, and they are just fixating on Andrea, and with their jaws dropped, or their eyes wide open, and or their faces crunched up, and their body language also, where they're kind of pulled back, or they're leaning in, but whatever it is, they are focused. When you go to the rehearsals and you see the actors on stage going through their parts, that sets a mood. And then with that, you kind of get an idea of the colors that are going to be used, the palettes, as well as the light levels, the speed of fade-ins, fade-outs, whether blackouts are used. You don't want to upstage it with the lighting, and you certainly don't want to not do it justice. And you need to really find the right balance and be able to highlight it, in other words, and really make it stand out. And what we did is we selected gobos that were in thinking that it's almost as though you're in a forest, right? You're in a mesmeric passage through his mind, right? And the idea is that there's so much going on there, but yet you've got this. The way I looked at it was that you're kind of in this forest, and you're in this all these trees around, and so that's what we tried to go ahead and put up on the screen. But what's really cool about it is, and this was kind of a happy accident. There are happy accidents which happen in really everything we do, but this was where that center tree. If you take a look at it, once you get the right colors and the angles and the focus, that looks like an eyeball. And especially at the end of the Telltale Heart, we start talking about the eye, and here's this red eyeball.
As an artist, I appreciated the visual aspects of it. I mean, I really wasn't expecting a lot going in. I just figured that it would be like a black background and actors in front of it. And I'm all about the visual. So from that standpoint, when we were sitting there waiting for the show to start, just the theater, you set the tone in the beginning with what was projected onto the screen and the gobos around it, and then there were a few set pieces and costumes enough that it pulled things together, and it had a good look.
I have a very rare perspective on the show, because while the actors come to their rehearsals and their performance, I, being married to Wayne, have seen it from this tiny idea in his head to what it has grown into today. And along the way, elements came out that we thought were needed, but we didn't know were going to be such an instrumental part of the show. And the music is one of those elements. We knew we needed a soundtrack to guide the emotional themes of the show. But what we didn't realize is just how fantastic those pieces of music would be. Of course, Wayne's a musician, and it came naturally for him to design his own music for his own show. But what we really were blown away by is that whether it's a full piece of music that he's composed, or it's a sound effect that he's put together himself, each one of those musical elements really impacts the emotion that you're having over the show. The Bells is a perfect example. This is a piece that you'll see throughout the show. It really is the backbone of the show. And he guides your emotions with what sound of the bell you're going to hear that precedes the actor.
The sound effect of the bells, while the actor is reciting that whole kind of repetitive poem, the bells, the bells, the bells. The sound effect of the bells underneath, which itself is sort of a piece of audio art, is a little tricky. I have to run the volume on that pre-recorded soundtrack very low under the actor's voice while still keeping it audible. You've got a live actor's voice and these stereo speakers and the sounds of the bells, and it has to be balanced perfectly. I'm riding the volume throughout the bells performance because we want to hear the bells, but we especially want to hear the actor. So hit the bells right on cue, the actor comes out, lights the match, lights the candle. I have to bring it down just as he speaks, and then when he's done, bring it right back up, and so you hear the clanging and the cacophony of the bells. So it's something that requires more than just pushing a button and playing the music. I have to play by ear, literally. I have to listen very closely to the actor's cadence and volume in order to make that bell effect work.
And the production itself, I appreciated because it was snippets of things so that you weren't sitting there all evening, listening to somebody,
At the premiere of Edgar, Justice was pleasantly surprised by how well the production was received, performing for sold-out audiences.
It was so exciting that so many people were interested in what we were doing.
On opening night, we were shocked because it was sold out. So then we thought, well, everybody came. We'll see how it goes tomorrow. And then we're sold out again.
One thing that I'm amazed by in our sold-out audiences, when the audience is quiet and absorbing, you could hear a pin drop. And when something is funny and catches them off guard, the whole audience explodes in laughter. So our show is for what we're presenting. It's a complete walk away from your life. You literally forget where you are, who you are, what you're concerned about, and you're engulfed in this 90-minute performance. And that's something that that is both valuable to our communities, and it's just an asset to what you can offer at your venue.
This production has already become a living, breathing organism in itself. It's a close-knit family that has been working on this production and putting it together. Look at the dozens of people who are in the documentary film. Friends, family, parents, kids, all involved in that piece of it. Some of them then translate, on stage. And it's a really cool group of people who have a singular vision, and that is to tell the story of Edgar Allan Poe.
I think it's important for people to try to get out and see live theater, because there's something kind of magical about it in a world where not a lot of magic happens sometimes. Just to be around other people in the same room is kind of different than just going to see a movie. Just try to, I think theater is kind of something that might change you as opposed to just entertain you. Maybe you'll catch something in it that might make your workday a little easier or something. Or if we just take your mind off your problems for a little bit, that's good too.
And I just like to think that everybody who pays any attention will go home and read a book.
Justice credits working alongside local school districts and local media for the success of each city's premiere.
The biggest surprise, and the thing that really floored me, was that the younger people really took an interest in it. And part of that is because they're learning that in school for the first time. We were happy to see that schools were offering their students to get extra credit to come and see the show. We've been asked to speak at schools, which is fantastic.
Wouldn't this be a great thing that if a teacher is teaching that course, that they could do that and then see this? Because even that film, I think, was interesting looking because it had some authenticity about it, their clothing and the interiors and stuff. So
I hope people realize what a great writer he was. That there are a lot of different layers to it that can be looked at over and over and over, and just when you think you may have it figured out, you probably don't, and can continue to look at it.
This production unites the mystery that surrounds Poe and the body of work so many adore. A talented cast, detailed documentary, and multimedia presentation has delighted audiences, revealing more on a man they always wanted to meet.